Alright, so, in a previous video, I mentioned how I beat my Gov teacher in a debate. Well, here's something else. In that article was mentioned. It mentioned Donald Trump's lawsuit against ABC and the New York Times. Here's what that article did not mention, okay? It did not mention that that those lawsuits were civil lawsuits, meaning that it was Trump himself as a person filing a lawsuit against ABC, okay? It was a defamation lawsuit. It wasn't the president suing ABC. It was Donald Trump suing ABC and the New York Times for defamation, for calling him like a Nazi and stuff. Okay, it was not a baseless lawsuit because it's defamation, and we know it's defamation because it got him shot at. So if people want to just sit there behind their screens and not do any research into anything and just claim, oh, look at that, Donald Trump's a dictator because he did blah, 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 well, then they clearly aren't that bright anyway, so why should we even bother talking to them over it? Because they aren't going to listen no matter what you tell them. Another point. Okay, but here's something funny about that, though. Trump's lawsuit against New York Times, it was apparently too long. Because apparently, count 1 was on page 1, of course. But then count 2 was on page 83. So the judge threw it out and said, come back with a shorter one. And while I understand that, it makes me wonder, like, what was in the original lawsuit that made it that long? Because that is honestly part of the ridiculousness of it. But at the same time, I want to know, like, what made it that long. Yeah, that's just my take on that stuff. What's another thing that was brought up to me? I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, gays being oppressed. They are not oppressed in any sense of the word oppression. Because if you are physically capable of walking in the streets naked, saying, quote, dicks out for pride, unquote, you are not oppressed. If anything, you should be arrested for it because that's public indecency or public exposure or whatever the law says that is called. And then bringing kids there too, to see these people with their nether regions and their buttocks and their boobs out, like, what on earth? That should get those people arrested for child abuse, because no, like, toddler should be seeing those things and said, hey honey, you can support this. Like, no, stop it. It's ridiculous. You are not oppressed. You are making yourself a victim mentality. And all this started with Obama. Obama's the one that started the victim mentality hood that's ruining the country right now. Because so many people are now reaching a point where they see truth as subjective. And when truth becomes subjective, there is no truth. So when there is no truth, now you have no moral ground. When there's no moral ground, there's nothing. There's nothing left for anybody. There's nothing left in the country. There's nothing left for our people. There's nothing left for our citizenry. Okay? All that victim mentality has gotten us is more soy boys and femboys and tomboys or whatever things there are that I try to identify or get closely identified with something else. And it's getting to a point of ridiculousness, because, like, my bio teacher last year, she was asked, oh, what was she asked? Oh yeah, she was asked, what's the difference between sex and gender? And guess what she said, okay? She said, and I quote, "Sex is your chromosomes, gender is how you feel." Unquote. A biology teacher saying that you are able to change your gender. Like, we are regressing as a society. America, one of the greatest country in the entire world, and you've got biology teachers saying you can change your gender, change your sex. And people don't see an issue with this? Like, I just don't get it. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous to me. Because mind you, I got into politics back in 2017, so I was around like 7 years old then, 7 or 8. And one of the reasons why I'm so articulate now and so understanding and have such a wide vocabulary is because I would watch the evening news with like my dad, and I would ask him questions like, who's Hillary Clinton? Who's Donald Trump? What's a Republican? What's a Democrat? What's a conservative? What's a liberal? I would ask these questions, and he would give me clear and concise answers, and it led to who I am now. But nowadays, we've gotten to a point where even something as simple as morality is now subjective. Or pretty much anything that was objective like 10 years ago, 10, 20, 15 years ago, somewhere around there, it is now all entirely subjective. And people don't see a problem with it for some reason. It truly is ridiculous. And somebody linked me a 2003 article that talked about oppression of like LGBTQI+. Here's the best part of that article though. It didn't cite a single freaking thing. In fact, the only information that it gave was about stuff that happened in the 20th century. Okay, so you're no longer oppressed because the only articles that you can cite mention what happened in the 20th century, which was 100 years ago. And then when they linked the 2022 and 2023 article from the exact same website, it was the exact same thing. In fact, it was like it took me like 30 seconds to scroll through the entire article. But most of the article wasn't about what it was titled. Because once you read like 2 or 3 paragraphs, it started talking about P.O. boxes and how addresses worked. Like, things don't make sense anymore, and it's getting ridiculous. But yeah, that's my spiel on all of that. Turning into discourse.